preserver. The whole point of you having a freezer at home is that it keeps your food fresh for longer. How many of us have a pizza at the bottom of a freezer drawer that has been in there for years? When something is frozen, time stands still. That's great news for adventurers and explorers, because when they come across something that's been locked inside the ice, it's like getting a window into the past. Today, we are going to be looking at 12 truly incredible things that have been found inside ice. Some of them have been there for thousands of years. Let's kick things off with this amazing discovery in Oslo, Norway. Photographer Sven Nordrum walked out on a winter's morning to find interesting things to take pictures of, but he didn't imagine he was going to see this. It's a frog, frozen between one jump and the next, halfway across the lake. The temperature dropped suddenly and it was caught like a fly trapped in amber. It's believed that the unlucky frog was actually out trying to find a mate when it met with this misfortune. There's being unlucky in love, and then there's this. Like Meatloaf once sang, "We would do anything for love, but we won't do that." Staying in Norway, let's look at something older. How about a sword that has been frozen up high on a mountain for over 1,000 years? There's a real mystery about this one. Archaeologists believe the sword is approximately 1,100 years old, but how did it get up there? It's definitely a Viking sword, and will have belonged to one of the famous warriors of old. The fact that it survived so long is a testament to the quality of Viking metalwork. Vikings were never known for their climbing skills, though, and scientists' best guess is that a soldier got lost in a blizzard and took a wrong turn, leaving his weapon behind on the hillside as he battled against the conditions. How about a whole gang of fish frozen inside a wave? Look no further. We've got it right here. This incredible sight was witnessed by a photographer in South Dakota, USA. At first glance, you could be forgiven for thinking that the ice came so fast it caught a wave before it even had the chance to hit the shore. But that's not quite right. The fish had been trapped beneath a lake when it froze, and when temperatures dropped even lower, the ice pushed up towards the surface, taking the captured fish with it. It looks like a work of art, but it's actually just nature showing us all how powerful it really is. Anyone for cake? This one looks pretty good. But would you believe us if we told you it was over 100 years old? It looks like it was baked yesterday, but it survived a century in the ice in Antarctica. It's a British fruitcake, and it was found inside Antarctica's oldest building. Because of where it came from, experts believe it must have belonged to legendary British explorer Captain Robert Scott, and that he left it there during an expedition to the South Pole in 1911. It's been so well preserved that scientists believe it's probably still edible, although nobody's been brave enough to take a bite out of it yet. Would you? Let's think bigger. How about a whole house? This impressive cruciform pit home used to provide shelter for 5 entire Inuvialuit families. It could be anything up to 500 years old, but because the ice did great work preserving the house after it was abandoned, the timber is as good as new. This house is the first complete home of this kind to be ever discovered, making it an amazing discovery for the University of Toronto out in Canada. Cruciform pits like this are talked about a lot in the writings of the Inuvialuit, but until now, we've never seen one to really get a feel for what life must have been like back then. They look cozy enough, although we wouldn't have liked to go hunting for whale bones to make the roof. Okay, hands up. Who left a bike behind in Austria? Who thought trying to cycle through permafrost was a good idea? Actually, there may be more to this story than meets the eye. This bike, found an amazing 9,850 feet above sea level, may have once belonged to a smuggler. The archaeologist who found the bike had it removed from the mountain to be professionally dated, and scientists say it's probably from the 1950s. Back at that time, the mountain route it was found on was popular with smugglers working their way between Obergurgl and Felders. Maybe someone got caught and ran away without their bike. Or maybe a smuggler decided to quit their life of crime for good and just didn't need the bike anymore. We showed you Captain Robert Scott's fruitcake before. How about seeing his whole hut? This is where Scott and his team based themselves for 2 entire years as they studied Antarctica between 1910 and 1913. Unfortunately, Scott and his team never completed their mission, and so the hut was buried under snow and ice for nearly 50 years. When American adventurers found it and dug it back out again, they were stunned at how well preserved it was. It was like Scott's men had been there the day before. Food and medical supplies were still on the shelves. Books laid around the room, waiting for somebody to come back and read them. There's even a dark room in there for developing photos. Conservationists have worked hard to make sure the building is preserved for future generations, and it should still be there 100 years from now. From 1910, let's move back to the modern day and another animal which has fallen foul of freezing conditions. There's nothing fantastic about this Mr. Fox. He, unfortunately, failed to make his way across the River Danube in Germany. The hunter who found it says he's forever finding frozen animals in the river, including wild boar, but he's never seen anything preserved so perfectly as the fox. The river routinely freezes solid in winter, and the hunter has left the frozen fox on display by the river as a warning to make sure human beings don't try to walk across it themselves. If a cunning, stealthy fox can't make it across safely, we don't think much of our chances. It took a hot summer in Switzerland to uncover these Bronze Age tools, and they don't come around very often. In fact, these artifacts were waiting for over 4,000 years for somebody to come and find them. Found on a glacier shelf nearly 9,000 feet up in the Bernese Alps, these discoveries are evidence that mountaineering isn't a recent thing for humans. In fact, humankind has been trying to climb mountains since the dawn of history. These Bronze Age explorers must have been expecting trouble. There are bows and arrows in the collection, along with primitive climbing pegs. Incredibly, a wooden food container was among the treasures revealed by the melting ice, and traces of its contents were still inside. This woolly mammoth had been laying inside the same ice pit it fell into in Russia for almost 43,000 years. When scientists dug it out, they were astonished by what they found. The animal had been so well preserved that its meat is still red, and there's liquid blood still inside its veins. The body is in such amazing condition that there's even talk that it could be used for cloning, taking DNA from inside it and using it to create a whole new mammoth, bringing the beast back from extinction. A prehistoric creature could be born again, all thanks to the ice. If we said we'd found terror in the ice, you might be expecting a monster from folklore, but in this case, it's a long-forgotten British sailing boat. The HMS Terror was abandoned way back in 1848 when its crew decided it was too dangerous to continue trying to cross the Northwest Passage, and the boat became stuck. It slowly sank to the bottom of the Arctic Basin and became frozen in time. Although a few fish have made it their home, explorers managed to get a camera inside and found plates and wine bottles still on the tables, exactly where they were left almost 2 centuries ago. The discovery in 2016 finally shed light on the mystery of what happened to the ship after the sailors left. You can't even avoid the ice if you travel through the sky. Way back in June 1937, legendary Soviet pilot Levinevsky and his crew were trying to make the first commercial flight to the United States via the North Pole when they and their plane simply disappeared. A mysterious radio message was received back in Russia, consisting only of digits containing the plane's call sign, but the location could not be traced, and the men and their plane were considered lost. No trace was found until the wreckage of a Soviet-style aircraft was discovered in the remote wilderness of northern Canada in 2013. Is it Levinevsky's plane? Nobody can say for sure, but if it is, then one of aviation's longest-running mysteries may finally have been solved. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and see you soon.